Alright, Smooth Brains, you have a project car that you want to make cool, but you lack the brain cells and the money to actually do the big stuff. Here's the top 10 easy car mods. I recommend doing these modifications first because these will enhance the feel, the performance, and the driving experience of your car. That being said, let's get into it. At number 10, we have brake pads and rotors. Now your stock pads and rotors are meant to last and be adequate for most people. But let's face it, you're not most people, because you enjoy going Mach Jesus down back roads at 3 a.m. You would be surprised how much of a difference brake pads and rotors will make. Aftermarket brake pads will bite better, slotted rotors will allow better pad off-gassing and keep the pad surface cleaner, and drilled rotors will manage temperature a whole lot better. Also, if you're after better brake pedal feel, you can swap out your stock rubber lines for braided steel ones. Do that, you flush out the entire system. Doing all this can enhance your braking performance to the point where you don't need a big brake kit anymore. Make sure you reach the full potential of your stock brakes before you waste a couple $1,000s on a big brake kit. At number 9, we have fog lights. These will help you out so much driving at night. You'll be able to see while it's raining, you'll be able to see wildlife easier, and your car won't look like a base model anymore. A lot of cars have OEM style kits that you can buy. Also the option of getting sealed beam kits if you want that rally look. Or you can do what I did. Go to Harbor Freight, grab some pod lights, and slap them on the front bumper. These aren't so bright to blind other drivers, but then at the same time they're marginally brighter than the stock headlights. And believe me, it's a night and day difference. But if you really want to send it, you can put a light bar on your car. With a decent light bar, you'll be able to see absolutely everything. Just remember, depending on regulation, you may or may not be allowed to run one of these. At number 8, we have wheels and tires. Now this will drastically improve the feel and performance of your car. You'll be able to launch harder, take turns faster, and utilize your brakes even better. If you combine that with larger rims, that will decrease body roll caused by sidewall deflection. If you want your car to handle better, this should be the first modification you do, because now you're going to feel a lot more and the car's suspension is going to do what it's designed to do. A lot of these older cars have tiny 15-inch rims. Believe me, it is going to make one hell of a difference. At number 7, we have a strut tower brace. Your car's strut towers will actually flex a little bit during aggressive driving. You won't notice it too much with stock suspension, but once you switch up to something more aggressive, you will start to feel it. This is why we have subframe connectors and strut tower braces. The stiffer the body of the car, the better the suspension will be able to do its job. At number 6, we have an aftermarket radio. Stop dealing with your stupid auxiliary cassette thing. Go to Walmart, go to the automotive section, and grab a freaking radio. You can spend $20 on the most basic thing they got, or spend a little bit more on a pretty decent one with a touchscreen. Give me that pile of crap that's been sitting in your car for the past 40 years is not going to cut it. Nor is a Bluetooth speaker on the dash. Ask me how I know. Grab a radio, grab some decent speakers if you want to. For the love of God, don't use butt connectors and electrical tape. Do it the proper way. Solder and shrink tubing. Also, if you really want to, you can grab a radar detector. These are actually handier than you think. If you get a fairly decent one, they have Bluetooth, they're able to tell you how fast you're going, and if you're going over the speed limit. Plus, some pretty nice ones have dash cam compatibility, and the majority of them actually have their own app. Just remember that commercial vehicles are not allowed to use these, and some places don't like them either. At number 5, we have a cold air intake. This is one of the most misunderstood modifications that people do. A lot of people think more air equals more power. Even though that's true, you really need cooler, denser air that has a more direct shot to the throttle body. You can't just slap a cone filter in and go. Proper cold air intakes have an isolated air box and larger diameter tubing. This allows colder, fresher air into the engine, not dirty, hot air from the engine bay. But if you have a carburetor, you can buy one of these. These air filters allow air to get sucked directly from above the carburetor. This optimizes air velocity through the carburetor, allowing it to run more efficiently. This air filter can add 5 horsepower and it's a 10-second install. Now that we've gotten more air in, let's talk about the exhaust. Now there's so many ways you can go about doing this. You can get a catback if you want more noise and a bump in power. If you're craving a bit more, you can get some headers. Shorties will give you a small horsepower bump, but they're easy to install. Or you can go with long tubes that are harder to install, but they give you a much more significant bump in horsepower. There is the option of tri-Ys, but those are primarily meant for high RPM performance and not low-end torque. Now, if your car has a dual exhaust setup, you can go with an X pipe that's going to give you a raspier, more NASCAR-ish sound, or you can go with an H pipe that has a deeper, more mellow sound. I recommend doing your research and figuring out what your car sounds like with certain exhaust setups. Like if you have a Subaru and you put equal length exhaust on it, it is going to sound like a Honda. Also, one thing to keep in mind is that cat deletes are not always worth it. Age and whether or not it's forced induction are big factors. Something like a new BRZ might only gain 5 horsepower while my Camaro can gain upwards of 20. And then there's extreme examples of Audis gaining like 70 horsepower from a cat delete. Do yourself a favor and just do the research. Number 3, we have a smog pump delete. Smog pumps are normally found on older cars. It's meant to pump air into the exhaust system, allowing any unburnt fuel to burn off before it hits the catalytic converter. Think about that for a second. This is an accessory that is increasing exhaust back pressure. Even though it's not running all the time, it's still a parasitic loss. And whenever they go bad, they lock up and bye-bye serpentine belt. Make sure your state allows you to delete one of these. To be honest, a more modern catalytic converter design is going to do a hell of a lot better than this antiquated pile of crap that's still on your car. And at number 2, we have a throttle body spacer. These have the benefit of increasing air velocity, flow, and turbulence into the intake. This also has the benefit of slightly increasing horsepower and throttle response. For most applications, this means roughly 3 to 5 horsepower. But if you have a carburetor, there are phenolic spacers. These things are basically made out of plastic and they prevent your carburetor from heat soaking and vapor locking. Believe me, it's the most embarrassing thing when you're in the Dunkin' Donuts drive-thru and you have your car die because the fuel is boiling. Rochester Quadrajet, brought to you by You Ain't Going Nowhere, bitch. Speak from experience, if you have a classic car that you daily drive, put a carb spacer on it. Number 1, we have a PCV Catch Can. A PCV valve takes crankcase pressure and vents it back into the intake. It means all the oil vapors and other dirt are getting sucked back into the engine. This leads to excessive carbon buildup. Direct injection cars are extremely prone to this. Carbon buildup can cause burnt valves, detonation, blow-by, oil consumption, and catastrophic engine failure. If your car has a PCV system, it needs a PCV Catch Can. Just because you install one of these doesn't mean you can skip out on the fuel induction services either. Yeah, the dealership's not trying to scam you when they recommend that, by the way. The reason I'm saying this is the fact that the EGR system you can't really do anything about except on bigger trucks. And the EGR system will always have a little bit of carbon buildup. So that PCV Catch Can is going to help out a ton, but it's not going to prevent all of the carbon buildup in your motor from happening. Anyways, if I missed anything, please make sure to leave it down in the comments below. Who knows, maybe there will be a part 2 to this, wink wink. But anyways, remember to like, subscribe, do whatever you want to do, and I will see you in the next video.